This is the Olduvai Gorge located in East Africa. Its soft sands aren't supposed to have any natural stones, but they do. Scientists have found out that each stone had to be carried there by someone. The investigation continued until strange notches were discovered on the surface of the stones, and it turned out that the alligators swallowed these stones in order to bring them to the gorge. For a long time, researchers assumed that alligators who swallow stones just don't notice them. Nothing weird about it, you just make a wrong move and a pebble end up in your mouth along with the dinner. Anything can happen, though it wasn't the case here. The second theory seemed more credible. Alligators need stones for better digestion, just like birds. This is the most common theory, which is hard to debate because there are similar examples in nature, but the truth turned out to be much more interesting. Alligators need stones to protect themselves from predators. Wait, what? This strategy works, especially well with small animals, which can become someone's lunch, and now alligators do not spit stones like bullets from a machine gun. They just get to the bottom. If you've tried diving in any reservoir or river at least once, you know the water will push anyone back to the surface. The more air you inhale, the more difficult it becomes to dive. Alligators also have this problem, and keep in mind, they feel much safer submerged than on the surface to spend as much time underwater as possible. They need to inhale a lot of oxygen, but how can they do that and stay submerged? That's right, they swallow stones. Just in case, let me clarify, this method only works for crocodiles. Don't try to repeat it. Though the stones really work, on average they increase the dive time by 88%, depending on the mass of stones and the alligator itself, of course. Scientists found it out through experiments and were quite surprised, but they were even more surprised to learn alligators swallow stones throughout their entire lives. This is not just a smart way of self-defense for the juvenile alligators. Even huge adult individuals don't mind eating a couple of cobblestones. That's because it's also beneficial for them to stay submerged. For example, it's much easier to kill their prey by dragging it deep underwater and holding it there for a long time. In addition, a heavier body can help the animal to maneuver better underwater or stay in the stream while waiting for food or just swim. In short, stones are suitable for everything, but stones can't stay in the stomach all the time, right? That is, food is constantly digested there. The animal moves. Life doesn't stand still, and alligators understand this very well, so they get rid of stones that grind against each other and become lighter. Why carry 10 small stones with you when you can swallow 2 large ones? How do they get rid of them? Well, the traditional way. And then another theory came to my mind. What if the alligators eat stones because they're actually petrified food? I agree. It sounds crazy, but some scientists believe that giant predatory reptiles act like chickens. So this theory might not be that crazy after all. In fact, any organic matter can get petrified if placed in a suitable environment. From time to time, archaeologists come across not only fossilized bones or wood, but also fruits, citrus, apples, peaches, pears, so maybe alligators are constantly on the lookout for food. Hold on, if any object can be turned into stone, does this mean that it's our fate too? Are we all destined to turn into stones to be eaten by alligators? In fact, less than 0.1% of all living creatures that have ever lived on our planet have been preserved in fossilized form. It's believed that only 1 bone in a billion becomes fossilized as a rough estimate. We'll get just over 60 bones from the current 330 million people in the United States. That's a bit more than 1/3 of what makes the skeleton of an adult man. In general, your chances of being fossilized are not very great unless you meet Medusa. But that's a different story. Let's go back to the alligators. If the chances of being fossilized are so small, what kind of stones do they swallow? Well, they're called gastroliths. I already mentioned them in one of my previous videos. Many animal species really use them to grind food right in their stomachs. The gastroliths the alligators use does not have to be rough and angular. Moreover, they can easily be reused even millions of years later. Do you remember the gorge I'd mentioned in the beginning? Yes, the ancient crocodiles really brought all these stones there, which were later found by scientists. Of course, they weren't going to give humans a brain teaser. They were just getting rid of gastroliths, which had become too small and useless, so it's a completely natural process. Who would think that millions of years later it would cause such surprise? Although it's not the stones and the Olduvai Gorge that amaze me, I have not even been there. But think for a second, after all, any stone that's smooth enough can in theory be an ancient Gastroliths, especially if there's no reservoir, river, or people nearby, any smooth stone. Now you're holding it in your hand, but millions of years ago, a dinosaur spat it out. Well, not exactly spat out.
That is one big pile of
As you already realized, the history of Gastroliths began a very long time, and you know what had happened by pure accident. Looks like the theory that didn't work with crocodiles was true millions of years ago. Sauropods, giant herbivores, dinosaurs really didn't know how to chew their food properly, but they could never come up with an idea to do something about it. These guys were not very smart, but they accidentally, in a literal sense of the word, invented gastroliths. They swallowed stones along with food and probably were surprised. It became way easier to digest, and evolution had to just get along with it. In fact, dinosaurs can be considered the beta version of modern animals. That is, they of course lived on our planet, but they were flawed. It took nature a very long time to figure out what it was doing, and why take regeneration for example. You know, some animals can cast off parts of their bodies and then regrow them. Dinosaurs also tried to do something similar. Though they didn't grow anything back, an error literally popped out in the middle of the process. The first flying dinosaurs were even less lucky. Apparently, they were originally conceived by evolution as something similar to modern birds. Dinosaurs had wings made of skin membranes, similar to bats. The whole structure was so fragile. It was too difficult to fly with it. Later, when the dinosaurs went extinct, birds stepped in to replace the unsuccessful project and other vacant niches. The new animals turned out to be much more viable, and they functioned as expected. Alligators, by the way, not only discovered the new way stones could be used, but also learned how to regrow tails. They may well discard even 8 inches of the tail and then successfully regenerate it. That awkward feeling when your little cousin is so much more successful than you. But this is how evolution works. All modern animals are superior to dinosaurs, and I'm not talking about physical features. Now it's clear that it's difficult to compete with giant lizards that can destroy everything in their path. But when it comes to intelligence, if dinosaurs suddenly reappeared, they would not be able to compete with any animal in the wild. Do not think that Tyrannosaurus was a skilled hunter. Its prey was just not very bright. Even velociraptors, who can turn the doorknobs in the movies, would strike you as dumber than a chicken in real life. Modern animals have a number of survival strategies dinosaurs couldn't even think of, mostly because they generally weren't very good at thinking. But don't blame them. People who lived 5 to 6 million years ago were also far from being smart, like Einstein. Yes, they were superior to other mammals, but compared to modern humans, our ancestors stand no chance. Intelligence is not Gastroliths. It cannot appear by chance. According to one theory, climatic shocks in a particular region simply forced the primates to improve their brains, to plan their future when food was scarce. As a result, we are now here. I'm making this video and you're watching it. But what if humans were suddenly eliminating? What species would step in as the next high-tech civilization? Who, after all, would inherit our smartphones? No, not primates. Most likely the new lords of the earth will be parrots. For example, African gray parrots already know how to count, handle simple tasks, speak, and complete sentences. Plus, they manipulate objects between their beaks and claws. Also, parrots have developed intelligence the same way humans did by adapting to climate change and the lack of food. Need any more proof? You know, what's ironic? Birds descended from dinosaurs. So if humanity disappears and the birds take over, the dinosaurs will essentially reclaim the earth. See you later.